Hey everybody, I'm Beato, and today's Everything Music. It's What Makes This Song Great, episode 102. The band is U2, and the song is I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, coming up next. I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, which is the longest title of a number one song, has to be, right? Was off the Joshua Tree, which was released on March 9th, 1987. The record was recorded between January of 1986 and January of 1987. It's funny, they released it in March, but I once heard a quote where someone in U2, or maybe their producer Daniel Lanois, said, U2 records are never finished, they just come out. The record is produced by Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois and is one of the finest records, rock records of all time. And this song was one of the two number one songs that they had off the record. This song and With or Without You. Those were their first two number ones. And they were back-to-back number one singles. U2 was the biggest band in the world in 1987. Now let me just say this before I read the things in the comments section. People like to say, well, The Edge, he's just, plays rhythm guitar or whatever, or blah, blah, blah about politics or whatever. U2 wrote some of the greatest songs ever. They did multiple records that were absolutely phenomenal. War, Unforgettable Fire, Under a Blood Red Sky is a live record, The Joshua Tree, Rattle and Hum, Achtung Baby. Those records in a row were absolutely outstanding, phenomenal pieces of art. Real art. Lyrically brilliant. The playing is brilliant on it. As far as I'm concerned, The Edge is one of the greatest guitarists of all time. And why I say that is that he was very similar to Jimmy Page as an orchestrator. What Jimmy Page did with Led Zeppelin is really what The Edge did with U2. It wasn't just one echo guitar sound, it's the multiple layers of sounds. The sounds from Achtung Baby were completely different, radically different from the organic sounds of the Joshua Tree. Now, this particular song is what I would call a gospel song, or has its basis in blues. I always say that a blues is a song that goes to the 4 chord and the 5th bar. But if you think about U2 songs, a lot of them go from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. And a lot of times that happens in the 5th bar. But that is part of the blues. And the song is really just 1, 4, 5 in D flat major. The 1 chord is D flat, the 4 chord is G flat, and the 5 chord is A flat. Those are the only chords in the song. And it has a very simple rhythmic structure. But the drumming on it is outstanding. I want to talk about the drum part, and I want to talk about the guitar part before we talk about the melody. Actually, I'm going to begin with the guitar part and the Edge's guitar sound. Now, I have a Strat here. This is what the Edge is playing on it with a capo. And like I said, the song is in D flat, but I believe that the song was cut in D major. Daniel Lanois, who's the producer and engineer of the record and mixed most of the record, says in the classic album series, you can find it on YouTube, that was released, in the 90s or so. This is really kind of where I got my idea of what makes this song great. I saw this series, I saw him soloing tracks, and I thought to myself, man, I would like to see somebody break down the actual tracks and break down the songs instead of just giving you just a casual overview of the things, right? So Edge used AC30 amps, Vox AC30 amps. On this particular song, he's using a Strat with a capo, and he uses Hurster picks. This particular one that is 1.1 millimeters, and it has a rough, it's nylon pick, and it has this rough dimpling on it. Now, that dimpling is what gives the Edge that chimey sound, that scratchiness, actually makes the amp produce more overtones. Right? You can actually hear that there's a high-end chiminess to it, which is really characteristic of his sound. If he didn't use his picks, it would sound like this. That's not cool. Now, the delay is set to a dotted eighth note. Dotted eighth note is really Edge's sound that he created back in the 80s. And it is so common nowadays that virtually every new delay pedal, including this new UA Starlight echo station has a dotted eighth note setting, as you can see here. This Nemesis pedal by Source Audio also has a dotted eighth setting on it. This is how important Edge's delay sound has become in modern music. The delay unit that I believe he was using on this particular record is made by Korg. It's a Korg SDD3000. Now, they made a reissue of it, which you're seeing here, a pedal version that very few people knew about. Probably about 5 years ago, I bought it on Reverb, and it's an exact copy of the rack mount unit, which was a fortune if you try to find one. I don't own one. But one of the things about this is that it actually has a boost on it that when you kick in the boost, it actually overdrives the amp more, and that's one of the reasons that they liked using this. The Edge liked using it because it was like putting a boost pedal before it, and it had the delay characteristics to it. So that's it about the guitar sound. Most of the people that are watching this are familiar with Edge's guitar sound. Now let's actually talk about the structure of the tune. Right when the song starts, there's the remnants of another drum take. It sounds like a room sound or something, which I never noticed when I listened to the album, but when you listen on Spotify or Apple Music, you'll hear it. Check it out. Then you have that muted guitar on the tonic, tambourine, playing kind of a random pattern, Edge, that foghorn, then the boom, 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 ba, boom, 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 ba, boom, da do 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 da. Okay, that drum part is amazing right off the bat. So you kind of have a lot of randomness going on here. You have that muted guitar. It sounds like it doesn't even have delay on it. It sounds like an overdub. You have Edge sneaking in with his... Goes that sus there for a second, and then right at the very end, before the vocals come in, you have that dissonance there of that major 7. Beautiful chord. The color of that guitar part really adds that harmonic interest and kind of longing to the sound. It gives it a melancholy feel when you hear that dissonance there. But let's talk about the drum part there, because right off the bat, the drums on this song, as on many YouTube songs, are really hip and unusual. I brought my friend Marcus in to talk about it with me. Okay, that's so unusual to have the kick drum playing that.
It's very unusual. Very few people do it. You know, he could have gone like this.
The other thing I want to talk about is where he lays back.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were talking before about like the tension between bass and drums in a band. Larry Mullen Jr. has that tension between his limbs, which is really cool because he doesn't lose time, of course. It's very steady, it's very precise, but not in the way of a quantized.
For example, the fill leading in on Pride, right?
Right,
Kind of
that whole... You know, if you quantize that, it'd be like, bop, 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 bop. It would sound like...
Let's talk about some other Larry Mullen Jr. while we're at it. Signature drum parts, like Sunday Bloody Sunday, for example. Bullet the Blue Sky. Totally unique groove.
Totally unique.
Oh, this is a little behind the scenes moment. I never do this. People always wonder, how did he make these videos and anything? Well, this is Patrick, this is Billy, and we're sitting here watching on the video, and we're actually discussing, let's see, is that too much drumming? We're going into all these different songs, but those guys said no, so I think it's cool. Thanks, Marcus. Okay, so the first verse comes in. The mix is very dense already. There's a bass drum fill again. Now, what's great about this is the phrases that Bono is singing. It's so natural. Da 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 da. Pause. Da 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 da. Pause. Those spaces in the melody make this a completely natural song. That's why it sounds like a hymn, why it sounds like a gospel tune, right? It has breathing space in the melody. This is something that gets lost in today's music, is that there's no space. Let me play along with the track. Putting in those little dissonant notes there. You heard it there on the 1 chord, that major 7th. When he gets to the 4 chord, that note becomes the sharp 11 on the 4 chord, on the G flat chord. It's beautiful. And he just uses it occasionally in the pattern. Right? And when he goes to 4 chord, that dissonance there's beautiful. It has that melancholy or longing feeling to it, which adds to the drama of the lyric. Okay, I want to briefly talk about the melody and how the melody and the guitar part work together. It's really brilliant. The verse melody is all pentatonic, D flat major pentatonic. D flat, E flat, F, A flat, B flat. Now, when it gets to the chorus, we add in the G flat, but that's really the only time that comes in. So in the verse, the think of the melody here, it starts on the 3rd of the D flat chord, F. Right? 3 5 5 6 5 3 3 5 5 6 5 3 da da da. It goes right down the scale, 3 2 1, and then goes to the 4 chord, 6 5 5 of the 4 chord, and then it goes to the 7. Major 7, that's cool. 2 1 1. Now, when it gets to the chorus, it goes to the 5 chord, and then it walks down 1 flat 7 6 to the 5th of the G flat chord to the 3rd of the G flat, and then. So really, we have this scale. That's it. Now, the great part about this is that the Edge is adding these extra notes. His main chords, D flat 5, a power chord, but then he adds in the major 7 there. Now, that C is only happening in the guitar part. Okay, so the Edge is completing the chord, but he's avoiding the F that Bono's singing. So Bono's singing the F by itself, and it's giving you this D flat major or D flat major 7 sound, and then on the 4 chord it gives you that sharp 11, that C. So the starkness of the Edge's chord voicings using the 5 chord, the dyad with the major 7, or the sus2, G flat sus2 with the sharp 11 on it, really creates the mood of the song. I mean, listen to that drum fill there. He lays that kick drum back. Oh! Old man rant right here. If you quantize by using Beat Detective all your drum parts or program them, you can't get anything like that in your music. If you want your music to have humanity, meaning sound like it's played by humans, you actually have to have it played by humans and not correct it. Another thing that's great about the vocal melody, besides the space that he leaves, the natural space, is all the upbeat accents he has that give these words emphasis. Listen. Upbeat there. Up. 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 Again, anytime you have an upbeat against a downbeat, the whole song is very downbeat centric. Boom. Boom. Ah, dun, dun, dun. Ah! Every time that Bono sings the upbeat, it moves it along and it adds that emphasis and draws you attention to those lyrics. And I love that when he says only to be with you and brings that vocal back in intensity. Bono never doubles his vocal. And he always said he just couldn't double it because he could never do it the same way twice. But he only needs one vocal. He doesn't need 15 vocal parts singing the same thing to have power. And when you only have one vocal, you can actually hear the emotion in his voice. Right here. And then, bass drum fill. There's no fill there, right? Normally a drummer would play a big fill. Well, there's a kick drum fill, kind of, that happens right there. And it has that laid back feel. Listen. Right here. Love it. Right there in the chorus, when it goes to the 4 chord, the G flat, Edge plays with just a G flat 5, but then he goes G flat sus2 back to G flat. That little move, da da da. But then he doesn't resolve it down to the F there, right? It's always has that darkness, that stark, melancholy vibe. Let's check out what Adam Clayton's doing on the bass. The bass part is very simple. It goes right along with the drums, right? 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. Does that for most of the verse, right? Right along with the bass drum. When it goes to the chorus, however, it actually holds. The first time the bass part actually settles is on the beginning of the chorus. Let me play along. Check it out. Right here. And watch. The great thing about this bass part is that it seems like it's playing the same thing all the time, but really Adam Clayton does different things every time. In the verses, he's playing along with the bass drum like you would expect, right? Doom, 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 doom. But when it gets to the chorus, the first phrase he holds, but I still haven't. Then he walks up, found, and he settles there. Then the second time he kind of plays eighth notes, so he's always jamming. That's the thing about Adam Clayton bass parts. Listen, it's great. I mean, it's all U2 is all about jamming. It's never repeating the same things. Here, watch it holds. Right there's a so it's never the same thing. It's so subtle that I've been listening to this for 34 years and I'm just realizing, wait a minute, he plays different things every single time on this. The vocal part, it sounds like it's one take that Bono's doing all the way through. It probably is one take. And another incredible thing about this is that the tune's actually recorded a half step higher and they slow the tape down. Now, how often does that happen? That's usually you record it slower and you're like, I don't think the tempo's right, and you speed it up. But they decided, Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois probably decided, you know what, this groove's better, slower. So Bono's even singing higher. If you watch this clip from Daniel Lanois playing the soloed vocal track, you'll hear that Bono's singing even higher than this.
I love this vocal.
Bono's totally uncomfortable.
I know you want to talk, but let's just listen to this a little bit.
Beautiful. It's a half step higher.
This is before Bono hit on the falsetto. He's very good at that these days. So this is like full open voice.
Listen. You can hear that it's a half step lower. Then we're on to the second verse. There's this constant muted guitar that's going on. That's actually an auto panning, meaning panning between the speakers. Daniel Lanois talks about it right here.
Sometimes, if you hit on a sound, it has such a personality that it allows you to, as Bono said, just step into the future, like this,
That's panning between the two speakers. Next, we have the bridge, which is just a vamp on the one chord, the tonic chord. Listen. Acoustic guitar enters. Everything kind of space opens up in the mix. And for that little non-guitar solo, I love it. Quick side note for those of you that are like me that like to know who actually mixed records, who recorded them, who produced them. Now, Steve Lillywhite produced the first 3 U2 records, Boy, October, and War. So he was brought in to mix With or Without You, Where the Streets Have No Name, Red Hill Mining Town, and Bullet the Blue Sky. Well, there's also an alternate mix of this song that Steve Lillywhite did that sounds nothing like the original, even though it's definitely the original vocal take, and most of the other instruments are the same. I'm not sure if it's the drum part that actually made the other mix. Bass part sounds different too. Let me play you the bridge from this because you can really hear clearly what's going on because it's a much less dense mix. Here it is. So clear. You should check it out. It's on their Spotify expanded version or Apple Music expanded version of the Joshua Tree. It has this alternate mix. To me, the mix doesn't have the same impact because it's missing a lot of the atmosphere that's in the final mix. It doesn't have that dreamlike quality to it. But if you really want to hear what the parts sound like, this has the clarity. So you can hear Bono's vocal part, you can hear the guitar parts a lot clearer. It's fascinating. Then they bring in the full choir here in the background. I love that. Oh my God, great singing. Oh. Space. Just the tonic. That's all it needs. That's all for now. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're a first-time viewer, ring the bell. That'll let you know when I go live and when a new video comes out. Give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. That's very important. If you're interested in the Beato book, go to my website at www.rickbeato.com. Follow me on Instagram at rickbeato1. Check out the new Beato ear training program at beatoeartraining.com. And if you want to support the channel even more, think about becoming a member of the Beato Club. Thanks for watching.